Hello, and welcome to Blackmagic Collective. Please let us know in the chat what your main discipline is. Oh, we have a super metal intro now. Actually, this is an instrumental version of my song. So, I'm down with it anyway. I hope you are. What brings you here today? Where are you here from? Please let us know in the comments box on Facebook and YouTube, wherever you may be watching this delightful content. What is Blackmagic Collective? We are a collective of film and TV artists and crew. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. No, we won't do that. But we do meet regularly on the business and craft with education events that focus on the tech side. Membership is free. Join right now to be eligible to win a seat of DaVinci Resolve, which is a great product by Blackmagic Design that is for color correction and editing, and the proverbial much, much more. Submissions are now open for the Blackmagic Collective Film Festival. We select one film each month to showcase, and a few others will also move forward to the semifinals. And 10 of our finalists will screen at our big year-end event in November, which hopefully we can do live, to compete for gear and cash prizes. Pardon me. Thank you to our sponsor, Blackmagic Design. I had written down thank our sponsor, and I read that note out loud for a minute, but that was what I intended to do. It is a rare company that absolutely loves filmmakers, and they're why we get to do everything that we do. As I said, they're giving away a seat of Resolve to one of you today, so stay tuned, and we're going to announce the winner at the end. And please put any questions you may have in the Q&A box, and we'll try to answer as many of those questions as we can throughout the show. And I think a lot of people are here right now because these people that we're about to introduce have large audiences and do amazing things. And with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start introducing our guests in random alphabetical, well, not random, but alphabetical order. We'll first introduce Diana DiMicco. Diana DiMicco is a storyteller. Oh, there we go. Hi, Diana.
Hello.
Is DiMicco right, by the way?
It is.
Okay, good. She is a storyteller, role player, and business owner in the TTRPG, which means tabletop RPG, and nerd spaces. In her day job at Die Hard Dice, she works to support content creators through the Dicefiliate program. After 5 p.m., you can find her sharing Dungeons & Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, Outbreak, Undead, and other TTRPGs, both on her channel called Bard and Barbarian, as well as other streamers' channels. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and I love your lighting in the background, and I'm sure many other people do too.
My mood lighting.
Awesome. I am in the mood. Let's introduce Michael Martin, who has been telling stories in tabletop RPGs for over 2 decades now, and in the past 5 years has taken that passion and love for the games and brought it online, combining his love for RPGs and his profession for the past 10, podcasting and online entertainment. Mike has discovered a thirst for telling stories with other actors in this new and exciting medium. And some of that involves a thirst for human blood because he has a podcast about vampires called Stitch of Fate, which I definitely recommend that you listen to.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's about right.
Cool. And then last but not least, Becca Scott. I can't believe I'm introducing all these people, honestly. Like I was earlier in the back room, I'm totally starstruck, and I'm amazed that I was able to get them all into a room, or at least as close as we can get to a room, in these unusual times. So Becca Scott is an actor, improviser, host, Twitch streamer, and YouTuber. She is best known as a host for Geek and Sundry on shows like How to Play, Game the Game, and TBD RPG, which is hilarious, by the way. Definitely watch TBD RPG. And as a correspondent for Magic the Gathering, Games Workshop, Dell Alienware, and more. And she also voiced Sophie Gray in South Park. She has a YouTube channel, Good Time Society, where you will find her as the keeper for Call of Cthulhu live play RPG show The Calyx, co-hosting the podcast To Boldly Watch, and talking board games on how to game, game played, and good-looking Kickstarters. That is a lot of content.
I gave you way too many things in that bio. It's, wow. Sounds obnoxious hearing it back.
No, not at all.
Speaking of Diana's streamer dice creation system, I am so grateful that to be a part of that program. So I got excited and starstruck too.
Oh yes, and someone Jay O'Calley is now in the chat saying, "Woohoo! Love Die Hard Dice." So you are far from the only one.
Who doesn't?
Exactly. They're great.
So I wanted to start because we are here to talk about streaming, about video game and RPG streaming, which I may have even forgotten to say in the beginning because I was just too excited. And obviously there are a huge number of streamers out there today, but all of you have obviously managed to stand out in your own special ways. How did you go about building your own niche or brand? Or maybe you didn't consciously set out to do that, and maybe you were just kind of doing whatever you loved and letting the chips fall where they may. Why don't we start with Diana? What would you say about that?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I had originally started streaming as part of a prior position with a different dice company, not Die Hard Dice. And I picked up a lot of useful skills and kind of cool technical things. And I learned that I enjoyed it a lot. And so after I left that job and, in the time of quarantine when we aren't leaving our houses or putting on pants, streaming is a really good way to interact with people and to make new connections and all of that. And so my partner and we decided to leverage some of those friends that we'd made along the way. And we said, hey, do you want to tell some stories with us? Do you want to hang out on stream for a little while? Do you want to play some D&D? And the answer to do you want to play some D&D is always yes, always. If someone doesn't have to run the game, it's usually yes. And it just kind of took off from there. And I'm very fortunate that my day job ties in very, very closely with what I do after 5 o'clock. So I've gotten to work with such amazing people, including the 2 individuals that are here with me today.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that's always the answer for me. Do you want to play a role-playing game? I did it for many years before the advent of the internet, and now I want to do it on the internet too. I want to get in on the fun.
Do you want to play a role play?
I've never heard that song, but it's my new theme song.
Yeah.
How about you, Becca? How did you go about building this sort of unique niche or brand for yourself, or maybe you just did whatever felt right for you?
That's what I ask myself every morning. How did I do this? Well, my way into the Twitchdom, it was before most people knew what Twitch was, before the Amazon buyout. I just stumbled into this studio that was doing stuff. Before I even started working with Geek and Sundry, there was this strange magical place called Socialtron Live, and we just started doing Twitch streams, and I was like, oh, this is fun, and did one where played horror games in pajamas with the black light, and then Geek and Sundry wanted to launch their channel, and I had produced something because I was behind camera. I was kind of leaning into the assistant director and producer route, but then I was like, oh, well, I'll just play games for you. You want? Yeah, I love games. I mean, I've been more of a board game tabletop gamer all my life, and came into TTRPGs through streaming. So, did it backwards, but now it's all I do. Just show up. Just show up. That's my number one piece of advice for anybody. Show up and be pleasant.
Yeah. You said you were a war gamer?
Board gamer.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So, sure, a little war game here and there.
Yeah. So how about you, Mike?
Yeah.
You certainly have a lot of projects yourself. How did you go about finding your own voice as a streamer?
My answer is going to sound similar to Becca's, I think, in that I don't know. I started doing this 10 years ago for YouTube, mostly as a hobby. It was kind of just an escape at the time. I just fell in love with this kind of gameplay videos and wanted to do that. And over the course of years, as Becca said, you just keep showing up, and eventually I met the right people, kind of became friends with people who were also growing, and through collaboration and more years of work, we grew together. And I'd been playing D&D since I was 13 years old. And when I saw obviously bigger TTRPG shows starting kind of explode and stuff, I just looked at that and I said, that looks fun. I would love to take D&D and then do my kind of take on it. And that launched our initial first Twitch channel, which was Lost Initiative Show, which was we did D&D 5e and a few other things. And then we tried World of Darkness there, and I ended up spinning off and doing a World of Darkness show on another Twitch channel called Roll For It. And it was through that show that I met Dot, and I met Bub, and a few other people that I've been telling stories with. And then as we were telling a story there, we kind of stepped to the side and said, hey, we could take this and do kind of a podcast format with this. How would we do it differently? Why would we want to do a podcast format? And that's kind of through that. That's how Stitch of Fate was born. So it was really just kind of putting in the time, putting in the work, finding, meeting the right people, doing it because it's just something that we're passionate about and we love. And then I kind of just ended up in the position I'm in now. There wasn't really I never went into this being like, okay, here's what I want to be. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. Awesome. It's really inspiring to hear your stories. I mean, well, partly because I'm consuming your content all the time, and so I getting to have the inside scoop. We have more love for Die Hard Dice from Cher Davis. Was over the moon when I realized Diana works for Die Hard Dice. One more reason to love you, lady.
Oh.
So we didn't have enough reasons.
My heart.
Why don't you say a little bit about what does Die Hard Dice do?
Well, so Die Hard Dice, the company, is just is spectacular. So it's a dice company. Look at this. You guys are so prepared.
Mine's around actually. It's just not immediately in front of me.
Today is the day where we play our D&D show.
It's true. Black Dice
Sponsored by
Society. Go
them.
check it out. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So Die Hard Dice is a dice maker in the industry. We work with a lot of different creators and we work on a lot of cool new projects. But my role within the company is one that is specifically designed to support creators of all sizes. So I run a program called Dicefiliate, which is designed to provide some monetary stability for maybe some smaller creators who might not be ready for a full-blown sponsorship with Wormwood or Chessex or whoever. We provide some of those resources that are going to help people pay for Sirenscape, pay for Zoom, maybe contribute some money to their players. Just all those little things that tend to add up when you're putting together a new show or you're putting together a stream. Plus, we just make really cool dice. So there's that too.
There's that.
Yeah, and right. And now it's not only we not only have a ton of streamers in this space, we have a ton of companies popping up to support the whole infrastructure,
Which is amazing.
Yeah, and this I mean, it suggests more and more to me that this is really the future. I was telling people, backstage that this is really the kind of content that I tune into now, rather than TV and movies when I have something going on in the background. Is that a trend that you all see, accelerating now?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's almost like a modern iteration on radio plays, right? Like something that was so popular back in the day, but now you do it. I mean, you can watch the stream and all the effort that goes into the cosplay and the acting that goes forward, but you can also grab the MP3 and you get a very similar, satisfying experience. And you go back into the 40s and the 30s or however long back, and they were kind of consuming similar content. Granted, it was scripted, but now we're kind of filling that niche in the talents of improvised actors and people telling stories together. It kind of just a modern take on that, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and the interaction that you can really get with the way that TTRPGs are presented now, as far as being in Twitch chat or leaving comments in YouTube and stuff like that. If I were a huge Law and Order fan, the probability that any of the actors is going to see and respond to a comment that I made about a particularly wonderful scene is slim to none, right? But I can leave a note on Stitch of Fate's latest episode and be like, oh my God, Mike, this was amazing. What a dramatic moment. How did you set this up as the storyteller? And I can get a response from that person in real time, which is just amazing.
Yeah, I want to double down on both of your answers. It's the interactivity. It's that's a real person. And to Mike's point about the old radio play, today is episode 6 of Black Dice Society, and I'm so excited for it. One of our favorite fan comments is from someone whose grandmother, Annabelle, has been wandering by while he was sitting at the kitchen table watching on his laptop. And she was in the kitchen, she was listening, and she came over and sat down and was like, oh, it's an old radio play, I get it. And yeah, her interest in it reaffirms why it works in my mind. It's just, people telling stories with their imagination, because TV can do anything now. And it's so boundless that we kind of like to work within this creative box. And having these limitations allows viewers and players to use their imagination in new ways.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, the cost of doing this is just getting lower and lower. Even if you want to produce like a multi-camera show, like it's not really that expensive to get a bunch of webcams and the technology that you need to switch between them.
Yeah, the cost you could kind of jump into now, back in 10 years ago, jumping in would get you like maybe a good microphone and a decent monitor. You know what I mean? Like the prices of modern tech has just come so far down. Anybody can jump in as long as they have a decent budget to work with.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of that, well, because we are kind of tech geeks here at Blackmagic Collective, I would be interested to know about your camera setups. How do you get your camera perspective to look so lovely on your streams? If you would care to share any of your secrets in that sense.
Mine's not all that secret, unfortunately, because I mostly work within the podcast space now anyway. But Twitch streaming and the like, when I'm doing my weekly like vampire show over there, it's just right up here. I just have sitting on top of my monitor. It's the C920, which is a very typical, a common camera for a lot of people to grab, beginners and so on.
Logitech.
Yep, exactly. It's a Logitech C920. It's great, and it provides HD quality. And I've had this thing for years, and I've never had to replace it. And you can just adjust the zoom and stuff and find your right angle. But I mean, Deanna has a hell of a much better view than I do right now in terms of like background. You have a way better camera angle than I do.
You know what's hilarious about that is I don't even know what this camera is. That's how low end I went when I was getting in. But what I've learned is that with the right space and the right lighting, you can make a real cheap camera look really, really good, which allowed me to pour more money into stuff like audio. So it's a trade-off.
I'm using a Razer Synapse camera, a Diva ring light, and I'm not gonna lie, it took me so long to set up my lighting this morning in such a way that my green screen was lit separately than me because my hair is more blonde than usual, which comes out green. But I also have a streaming setup that now is green. But
That's what that light does.
Loud
That's amazing.
audio. Sorry, the rolling green screen clutch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rolling green screen is so good.
Yeah, really only on Thursdays is my green screen day. So like making sure that you have lit your background separately than your foreground is what I found to be the most important trick that is so frustrating and hard before you know that. You're like, why am I washed out? I'm putting more and more light because you're putting too much light on the front and none on the back.
Yeah.
Lighting is one of those things, that I never got good at. I try to teach myself more and more, but I always just end up messing it up more and more. I'm not good at lighting.
Nonsense! You're gorgeous. Stop it.
Yeah,
Your
that's
lighting
natural,
looks great right now.
Natural lighting. I haven't had to do jack shit. This is the sun and my ceiling light.
Just only schedule during the day and you're fine.
Exactly.
Also, audio-wise, getting a mixer, which was actually a gift from somebody in my community, was the greatest thing that ever happened to my audio.
Mixer.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, please. I did not mean to. Go right ahead.
I was just going to say the one piece of advice that I got from B. Dave Walters, it will live with me until I die, rent-free in my head. First day I started setting up for a stream, I asked him, do you have any advice? And he said, focus on the audio. Because people can write off a blurry camera. Chances are good some people are watching on their phones and won't see you anyway. But they can hear you no matter what. So I've kind of stuck with that and tried to focus on having that be very clear and crisp. And, I'm sure that some of you have heard my dog snoring in the background. Good audio is just,
I actually haven't heard him.
You must have the cardioid setting on or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's me wheezing.
I definitely agreed with Deanna. Like, audio is first and foremost, like, should be your priority. Even if you only have a little bit, like, you can get a decent studio condenser mic for like 150 or less that will last you a few years. I leaned on a Samson C01U studio condenser for like 6 years, and it did the job until I reinvested in a Shure and a mixer.
Mine's like a $90 mic, and it's great.
Yeah, you don't have to go like $1,500 or whatever into audio to get good audio.
And that's the other thing is
Okay, but don't judge people if they do, right?
No, yeah, I mean that's what I did. So don't worry.
So I knew nothing about any of this. I am not a techie person. I don't know what I'm doing on Blackmagic Collective. Chris is like, Diana, go away. We don't need you anymore. But I just asked. I was like, hey guys, hey community, hey Twitterverse. I have X dollars to spend on this thing. What are your recommendations? And it turned out that I had a friend who dabbled in microphone modifications just for funsies on the side, and he was like, "Okay, I'll set you up with something in your budget." And it's worked out great. So if you don't know something, just ask the community.
Yeah. Well, my experience of being a tech expert is knowing how to Google what you want to know. That's it.
I should write that down.
Yeah.
That's hopefully not proprietary, right? Breaching NDAs.
Every time you do it now, you have to pay me 50 cents.
I think
that's how she keeps herself in business.
Yeah. That and Die Hard Dice now.
That's just good advice for like this industry in general. Like I feel like that's how I taught myself everything was just Google foo, man. I just Googled everything. There's no school, there's no teacher in this industry. You gotta, if you want to learn, then you gotta do it yourself.
Yeah, my 4 years of a bachelor's in theater didn't teach me any of this.
So you all obviously are I think you all stream both video games and role-playing games. Diana, you're mostly role-playing games.
I'm bad at video games, guys. I try not to. Like,
that shouldn't stop
really
you from
Yeah,
streaming.
that should not stop you at all.
Yeah,
That can be entertaining too. Yeah. How do you choose the games that you stream? I mean, I know some people are going for whatever game just came out because they think that'll get the most attention, and then there are other people who are just going for the games that are passionate about and so on. So, what's your philosophy as far as that goes? Whoever wants to take that.
I'll jump in. Okay, number one, I love to stream Magic the Gathering Arena nonstop. If I could just play that 8 hours a day, I probably would. I guess I could do that. But now there's too many other fun games to play, like role-playing games. But I have every Thursday, I stream for Geek and Sundry, and it's a variety stream. So we play a different game every week. So I just, this past week, went to my Discord and asked everybody what's a great single player adventure game that I can play for 3 hours, and got some really great suggestions. But Steam is such a resource. Their rating system and is usually, I'll just randomly pick something that has a cool trailer on Steam.
Yeah, for me, since streaming video games right now is more of just kind of a side thing where it's more of like a do it for interest. It's kind of like whatever more serves my purpose for YouTube at the moment. So right now I know I want to work on a video for Stalker from like 2003. So on stream, I'll play through Stalker, and then after stream, I'll write my script, I'll do my research, and I'll create a video on that game for YouTube. So I kind of use it as like a way to kind of show the stuff I'm going to be playing anyway. The Twitch for me is a way to kind of dual purpose the content that I'm making for YouTube in the first place.
I'm the exact opposite. So for me, instead of it being a learning experience or something that my community chooses, for me, it's always whatever makes me look the most ridiculous. I like to do a lot of fundraising and charity stuff on the side. So people like to watch me fail at games is what I'm learning. So stuff like Phasmophobia, or there's I can't even think of what it's called. There's a game where you play a cat and the entire objective is just to knock things over and like trash an apartment. Like I've played that one on stream. It's whatever allows my community to engage a little more, whatever they're kind of invested in the moment. But anything real time makes them laugh. So there we go.
If I can pull off of that, like Becca said, how Steam is such a huge resource. And Deanna said, community. There's so many Steam games now that have Twitch integrated into them that they can directly affect the game that you're playing. There's just there's so many resources now to just directly involve your community.
Yeah, and the same is true when it comes to role-playing games. Actually, I'd be curious about how. Is it just the role-playing games that you happen to be really digging at the time? Or do you have some other way that you decide on the games that you're going to play?
Chris, I know you've watched our Q Times games with World of Darkness, right? So that started out with me going to B. Dave Walters and saying, hey, I have no idea how to play Vampire the Masquerade. Do you want to show me and some other people on stream so that they can learn too? And we've now been streaming World of Darkness games for over a year. Just going through these different games. So for me, I much prefer to play things that I don't know, but that I'd like to try and share with other people. So
there's been some amazing, like edgy stuff on there, like the game about the fairies and the one about the spirits. Those are both World of Darkness settings. Oh yeah, Wraith the Oblivion, and it's always
Wraith is great.
Something : the something. There are too many of those games in the world of Darkness to tell them apart.
It's true.
Yeah. For me, as far as choosing RPGs go, it's more just what, like, for me, if I'm going to storytell, I kind of stay in the world of darkness. It's just like my bread and butter. It's what I know. But if I'm playing, I am way open to trying all kinds of different things because I don't have to hardcore learn the system immediately. I just got to learn the basics so I can play and role play and get in a character. But World of Darkness is just, if somebody wants me to run it, I'm kind of just, I'll stick in the World of Darkness. Anything, vampire, werewolf, mage, you name it. I just love that world.
Yeah.
Up until last summer, I was very much whatever, I'm down. I'll show up, I'll roll dice, and I'm going to lean into the role play side because I come from an acting background. And, not that I don't understand the mechanics, but the role play part is what's really fun for me. And then I guested on Stream of Blood. And they have a show called Neptune Society where they bring in just different players for one-shots playing Call of Cthulhu. And I thought, percentile dice are everything. And I bought the Keeper rule book and I was like, okay, I'm starting a show, and got together friends. And we just did our 22nd episode that Chris was watching on a second monitor a minute ago, last night. And so I got very addicted to Call of Cthulhu just because I'm really intrigued. I find that the ability to have a smorgasbord of character skills helps me to create the character on the fly of like, oh, well, horseback riding is in their skill set. So I think this means that, like, yeah, they're really good at it, but they fell off when they were a child and now they have a phobia there, or, just anything that is a tool to create a unique character backstory moment is really fun. And that's why I lean into Call of Cthulhu as a system.
It's the best system.
It's the best
system. 100%.
I'm jealous. It's one of the systems I haven't tried yet that I've really been itching to get my hands on. So
we can change
do it,
that.
man.
very
listen,
easily.
you sign me up. I'm into it. Like,
Okay, use my discount code Calix2021 at checkout.
I will.
Sorry, I'm programmed.
Branded, not programmed.
The reason you say you love Call of Cthulhu is the similar reason I love World of Darkness too, because the rule system allows for such easy character creation that allows you to give them a history to just build on immediately. 5th edition Vampire is so mechanically light compared to V20 in a way that is more lenient and heavily focuses on storytelling as opposed to, trying to be more mechanics heavy and like numbers crunchy. And that's why I love V5, because I can open up a book and in a few seconds, if I need to put together a character in my mind, I can do so just looking at the skill list and being like, okay, here's what they're good at. I don't need to worry about, do they have a +5, a -2, any of that. Just they have 3 dots in it. It means they're pretty good at it, and just not think about it anymore.
And that really lends itself to the streaming environment of playing TTRPGs too, right? You can it's very, very easy in D&D to get bogged down with those rounds in combat and all of the math and everything that goes along with it, to where you kind of lose that pacing. I find that in Call of Cthulhu and the World of Darkness, I don't see that as much. So, I agree. It's a good system. Nice and crunchless.
Yep. It's really
One
nice.
more note. I was going to call out M. Jones on that comment. Yeah, that's also what I love about Call of Cthulhu, the mystery of the unknown. I like the uncovering of clues style of role-playing game. Always fun. And great pre-written scenarios from Chaosium.
Yeah.
And the constant threat of being grabbed by tentacles.
Yes. Tentacles could be anywhere.
Threat or reward.
Yeah.
Right. It depends on how you see it.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, so I know that all of you have done, sort of long form campaigns where you've done something over a long series of sessions, like Black Dice Society, for instance, or the Q Time shows that we were talking about, and Stitch of Fate. All of you have done that. How do you decide whether to do a long-term campaign or like a one-shot adventure? Like what do you tend to gravitate toward more, and what works better for sort of streaming purposes?
I guess it depends on, from my perspective at least, it kind of depends on on your audience. My longest running show is another vampire show called Sound Silence, and season 2 was called Silence of Shadows. A total of 84 episodes, each like 4 hours long. We're going into season 3, the final season. Well, all I had in mind was a 3-season arc as storyteller. I knew I wanted to do 3 seasons, and I knew how I kind of wanted the general themes of each season to go. The second season was our longest. We did 54 episodes, but we basically said we know how I want the season to end. When we get there, we'll get there. And the players were all in for the long haul, and there was no concern about that. And we knew that the audience would, if we're going to do something long like that, the audience is going to get attached to these characters, and it's going to be really important. So it's more just like, I guess it's more what me and my players are looking to tell. Are we looking to tell a long story? One shots kind of fit in between the seasons. It's almost like that's what we do in between. We usually take about a month or two off between seasons before jumping back in. But we tend to lean toward the longer form because it gives the viewers and the listeners the chance to latch onto these characters, and it makes those dramatic plot turns even more. And if, God forbid, a player ends up dying somewhere along the way, the ramifications of that are going to be felt much more in something that's like 50 episodes long, as opposed to just a one shot where you kind of expect people to kind of blap out and they're dead.
Yeah. And people start making fan art when you've got a long form campaign. Like I was surprised, like with Black Dice Society, I was surprised at how it's only the first episode, and now we've gotten hundreds of sketches of you and the other characters.
Awesome.
Oh man, we commissioned our first set from Adam Schubert, and I got to shout out Devil Daisies in particular. This is an amazing artist that immediately latched on to drawing my character Tatiana, and I love her, and I love her interpretations of my character because she sees what's in my brain. But I have to say, Black Dice Society will be my first long-running campaign, even off camera. At 6 episodes, that's a max for me already.
That's awesome, though.
But I've probably played 100 TTRPGs that are 1 to 3 shots. So I have a very unusual experience in that regard, and therefore I always create a big character that is ready to make drastic decisions and die valiantly.
I'm kind of the same way. I think I've had far more short running campaigns than long ones. Really, I feel like lately I've done nothing but one shots, honestly, between Jasper's Game Week and everything else. And I think a lot of it, for me at least right now, is scheduling. And I'm sure you two feel it too. There's just not enough hours in the day. You can't sit at every table and play every game. But I find that short arcs and one shots allow me to share the table with more people. And, that's always fun to get to play with new players and experience a new dynamic and kind of see what other people do differently.
Yeah. And actually that raised an interesting question about how, because I know all of you obviously do things outside of streaming. There are some streamers who like, okay, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. Well, like you mentioned that you do acting as well. Although, I mean, obviously some of the streaming stuff you do also involves acting, but I think you do some non-streaming acting too.
I got to be in an actual shoot on a set this week. That was a big one, and that's all I can say because I'm not allowed to say what it is. But the life of an actor is waiting for jobs and getting let down by the jobs you didn't audition for and didn't get. So, yes, that's still a thing, but most of my time has been streaming.
Yeah, it probably happened to a lot of people during 2020 who were accustomed to leaving the house in order to act.
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole different topic for another panel, but the industry has really changed in the amount of self-taping that you do for auditions. And I've sort of stepped away from that because I'm streaming so much. I'll just wait till people ask me to do the thing. But it has really changed. I mean, a lot of people still are an LA local on paper, but have moved away and will send in their tape. And then if they get booked, come out. Right. Which is nice that you can not have to pay the crazy rates to live in LA and still get work.
Yeah, well, cost of living in LA is wild. That's a whole other conversation.
We have some questions from chat. M. Jones says, if you could hold on to one old system and game, what would it be and why? Presumably this refers to RPGs. What do you all think about that?
What old RPG system would I want to hold on to?
How old are we talking? Because, I loved Wraith. Wraith was my favorite RPG experience ever.
It's a great setting.
It's pretty
Have
spectacular.
you played the VR game?
Not yet. Not yet.
Maybe
that'll be when I
was
stream
gonna say,
and
is it too
horrify
scary?
myself.
I mean, I'll be the stereotypical answer for myself. I would hold on to Vampire V20. Not that I think it's a great system in terms of its mechanics, but the lore and the history there and the amount of depth there is to that system at this point and how many side pieces and stuff that are there. There's just an endless wealth of potential storytelling material. Even in V5, you could easily retool most of it to make it work. Yeah, I would hold on to V20.
Yeah. That has been around a while, hasn't it? Like,
oh, yeah,
Jason Carl was working on it back in 1995. Yeah.
Yeah, 5. I was going to say 6, but I think you're right. I think it's 5.
That's because Jason Carl is immortal.
Yes, yes. It's wild talking to Jason now and being like, dude, you've been around for so long, and I have like your books from like forever ago.
Yeah. We have another question from Shared Davis, which is, aside from the love of doing it, do you feel there are ways to create adequate forms of ongoing compensation? Let me know if this is too sensitive a question for TTRPGers and actors.
Yeah, I think it comes down to being sure to ask people to pay you. Know your worth. And there are forms of revenue. Like, my stream is sponsored by Chaosium when we play Call of Cthulhu. Really, it came about with me loving Call of Cthulhu first and deciding I wanted to do that stream, and then reaching out to Chaosium and saying, would you like to sponsor? Here's how much it would cost for me to be able to pay my guests. And, those things aren't sustainable forever for the companies, but, people are publishing a product that you are helping promote. So it's really about understanding the business and understanding what is economical for the company and what is fair for you for the amount of work you're putting in. And if you're putting in too much work for no compensation, then maybe do something else.
Yeah, maybe not.
I agree with Becca 100%. So if you want to get paid to do something, ask.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. I say that like it's really easy. But I have a unique vantage point here because I'm on both ends of this particular conundrum. And what I'll say from the business side of things is that when I look at a stream or a group or a network or something like that, and we're trying to decide what kind of monetary compensation is appropriate, it always comes down to passion, right? There are things that certain people in the industry do and are known for that are 100% free, but they show how much the person cares. Those little things like always be on time, doing the cosplay. It's never something that's like required, but showing that kind of input and that kind of effort being put forward, the passion really shines through. And as a business person looking at those individuals, those are the ones who we want to help support because we know that they care about the project and the product. And then as a TTRPG network, pay your cast, even if it's not much to begin with, tell them, say, hey, we really appreciate you giving us your time and helping us put together this great story. Here's what we're going to be able to pay you going into the first 10 episodes or whatever. Here's how we plan on compensating you in the future. Planning for those things and then discussing those projects with companies that align with your values is going to be the best way to make sure that you're sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Going off that, from the creator's perspective, kind of where the only one I operate of, and obviously working with Deanna a lot. Well, just say Dot works with her more. And honestly, Dot, Little Red Dot on Twitter, please go check her out. She actually had a really great thread on this exact topic a few days ago. Like, she breaks it down way better than I ever could. But for our perspective for Stitch of Fate, I mean, as Deanna said, we couldn't jump in there with a ton of money. There wasn't really a lot there, especially the first season. We Dot Chelsea ended up getting a bunch of grants from a few different places just to fund our first season. But, we ended up, it wasn't a lot of money for everybody. And one of the people that joined us, Mark Meir, we couldn't afford his rates. Like, he's Commander Shepard. He's a bunch of other, really great voices in video games, but we approached him. We knew he was looking to do a vampire thing just because he loves the system. And Chelsea was like, here's what we can offer you. Here's what we're looking at for the first season. And if it does well, we'll launch a Patreon, and here's how the pay would adjust as it grows. And he jumped in right away, and he's been with us ever since. And we're in season 2 now, where obviously we work with Deanna, and we have our own Patreon as well, and other forms of funding. But we were just upfront. Just everybody knew what they were getting into from the beginning. There wasn't any hidden like, haha, we're doing an extra 20 episodes. You hold to it. If people are enjoying it and it's like a great show and the audience is growing, then they're going to stick around because they're going to be there from the ground level. And as it gets bigger and bigger, they're going to be benefiting from it monetarily as well.
Yeah.
You got to treat it like a business. I mean,
Correct.
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly mention that there is a dynamic of gender, and there's been studies where, in a traditional workplace, women are more hesitant to ask for more money because they're sort of like, well, I have to prove it and then I'll be ready to earn more money, instead of like, well, if I'm paid more, I'll work harder, is kind of a more traditional male perspective. And not to say that there's, this binary and there aren't a whole spectrum in between. But I think that sometimes people need a little more confidence to just not be afraid to ask. Just be tactful with how you're asking. Be okay with no. If the answer is no, that's fine. It doesn't mean you're unworthy. It just means, there's not the money right now. But especially like I, as an actor, have been managed and have had agents before. And right now I do those things for myself because I realize it's kind of like, well, so long as you're willing to ask for it, there's no problem with being your own advocate, but just know that you can ask for those things.
Yeah, that's great. And going into streaming RPGs, I mean, even that takes a certain leap of faith, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the medium, the niche is definitely growing, but it's still a niche in compared to, all the other dominant forms of entertainment on Twitch right now. But it's a niche that is exponentially growing and growing quickly. And there are more and more shows that are filling kind of that space. Again, Chelsea, she's kind of does all the behind the scenes things for Stitch of Fate, but she dives deep into Twitch and she kind of comes out with these numbers and she really has it all broken down into a science to like how fast certain topics on Twitch and the TTRPG community are growing compared to others and what people should be focusing on. And if you really want to get into the depths of that stuff, Twitch provides you all the tools to do so, and you can really hammer in where you guys are growing and where your kind of avenues of growth should be and can be.
Yeah. And is that something that you do analysis of, like all of you, like what were the Twitch analytics for this particular RPG stream or that one, or are you more focused on what do I want to do and what strikes my fancy right now?
I tend not to look at the numbers. Yeah. I do my very best. In the past year of quarantine, lots and lots of people have started streaming, have started sharing their product, their stories with the world. And one of the hardest things about doing this is the measuring stick that you constantly find yourself up against, right? There are people. The Critical Role constantly has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people watching. You can't look at that. And one of the most valuable pieces of information I was given was, 20 dedicated audience members is better than 100 people who are only engaged for 5 minutes. So I tend to avoid the analytics because I know my brain. And I know that it would, if I really dove into them, I would never stream again.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah.
Yeah. Comparison's always going to be your own downfall.
Yeah. Eyes on your own paper is one of my favorite mantras. But at the same time, you need to know what's working and what's not. And so I do look at numbers, but I only compare them to my own numbers. So if one video did better, I try and figure out the reasons why. And I'm no statistician, so I probably don't get as much from numbers as, say, this Dot character. But I think there's always lessons to be learned from looking at the math. And whether that's, a longer stream brings in more eyes, or the first episode of a new arc is always going to get more than the third, and stuff like that is useful information to, say, give to potential sponsors and stuff like that. So you kind of have to pay attention to the numbers a little bit, but at the same time, if you're passionate about the thing, maybe it just hasn't gotten enough shares yet. And if you dig your heels in and really, passionately commit to it, then that will grow numbers. But just, make sure they're going up and not down.
Yeah. Like, as they both have said, comparison is your own enemy at this point. Like, you don't want to compare yourself to anybody else. As far as analytics are concerned, I'm kind of coming from a different spot, and because Stitch of Fate's a podcast, it's not streamed on Twitch. So know your medium too, and what you're looking for in terms of your analytics and your statistics. Because, for instance, podcast analytics are drastically different than Twitch because there's no way to measure how long really anybody was listening. There's a way to measure how many people downloaded the episode. But as far as like when they dropped out, how far along they listened, that's not really available yet in terms of podcasting analytics, because podcasting isn't like on a one. You're not just going to Twitch. You're not just going to YouTube. You're putting it up on a host and then it shoots it off to like 10, 15 different podcasting hosts. And they're trying to aggregate all the numbers from those different ones. And they all measure kind of differently. So it's a little bit different. But as long as you're not going down, you're in the clear. A lot of people also see stagnation as bad. I just see that as stability. It means you've really hit like a core audience that isn't going anywhere. And there's always opportunity to get that stagnation to go back up, whether it be the beginning of a new season or maybe a new guest or a new story or what have you. But I think seeing stagnation as an enemy as well, or a bad thing, is also kind of self-destructive.
Yeah.
Listen to both of them. They're more optimistic than I am.
Yeah. And it seems that you can, I mean, even if a particular stream on Twitch doesn't get a ton of views, you can just record that and then make it into a YouTube video. And I think that, Mike, you were talking about doing this before, well, of course, your Twitch streams get a lot of views, but you can also turn them into YouTube videos that have post-production on them. And then they can become part of this continuing saga that's narrated by you and has graphics and so forth.
Yeah, repurposing content, as some people call it, or just finding out a different way of using the content that you're already going to be producing on the back end anyway is always a good way. It just work smarter, not harder, is a lot, it's a very typical saying. Just if you're going to be doing something in the back end and you could be putting it in front of an audience and they will be entertained by it and you can have a good time doing it, I don't see a reason not to do it, because you're going to be doing it for work either way. So you might as well.
Yeah. And we have a question. How many episodes of content should you have ready before launching a TTRPG campaign? Or should you not worry about it and just get the first few episodes written and go?
I think that depends on the TTRPG.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, something like Dungeons and Dragons, where, here are your adventures, here are your heroes, present them with this quest, just dangle it in front of their faces. And the nature of Dungeons and Dragons is that they'll follow. Whereas something like being in the world of darkness, you're presenting your coterie or your motley or whatever it is. You're presenting them with a set of circumstances that they're really supposed to work within. So I don't write anything except for here's the premise. That's what you get ahead of time. Because writing too much is just going to leave you frustrated when whoever's sitting at that table totally derails it and goes off to chase something shiny.
And it'll happen in 5 minutes. It will not take long before they choose option Z. So
exactly.
Yeah, I like to be the chaos agent that chooses option Z as a player. So I say, don't worry about that. I see TTRPGs as an improv exercise with some bullet points to hit or not hit. Be ready for anything. But my idea of when do you know when you're ready to do the thing? I think set the date first, and that's the day you will be ready. Because me personally, I commit to a bunch of stuff. But if oh man, speaking of, I gotta run soon. But if you have the thing in sight and you're like me and that you like to be prepared, you'll know, okay, great. Well, I have 2 days till that thing. So now is the time that I'm going to crunch because I have to be ready in the 2 days, and I'll be ready enough wherever I am in those 2 days. That's what we got and where we're going from. Just do the best you can. It's going to happen
whether you wrote it or not. So
yeah. But tabletop RPGs are a collaborative experience. So let it be collaborative. Lean on your players if you're ever in doubt.
Yeah, as a storyteller, I am not their enemy. I'm working with them to tell a cool story. Whatever serves their characters at the time is kind of what I end up going with.
I'm 100% the enemy.
Well, we're playing Call of Cthulhu. You might be. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm Cthulhu.
Yeah, there are some GMs where if an attack hits them, they're like, "Okay, you hit me. Why'd you have to do that?"
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to roll to hit you. It's like, no, it's not you. Don't take it personally.
Yeah, definitely don't. I don't like being the antagonist 100% of the time. I try to be collaborator a lot of the time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we have a few more minutes, but we have one other question that
Do you need to run back?
I actually have to run. I'm
Oh,
so
yes, of course.
sorry. I have a live stream beginning in 9 minutes.
All right.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to guest. And I know I don't want to. It was so nice to meet all of you.
It was really nice meeting you too.
Thanks, Becca.
Thanks so much for being here.
Bye.
Yes, but I think we can take one more question, which is how long before a campaign starts should you be reaching out to people to be players? How long is courteous and appropriate?
I guess that would depend on are you looking to like do this if you're looking to do this like as a Twitch show, it depends on the game you're playing. Some require a lot less prep than others. Vampire, for instance, very little player prep, whole lot of storyteller prep, where there are some where it's equal and some where it's less. So it just depends on what you're playing. What was that?
The lore.
Yes, it's just you got to know your world. I don't know how Call of Cthulhu is, out of curiosity. Like what kind of
Call of Cthulhu? I feel like it's the exact opposite, because Call of Cthulhu is basically bending reality, so you can make or not make things happen sort of willy nilly. Because Elder Gods are doing it, and they don't have any rules.
That's true. That sounds fun to be a storyteller.
Just flying by the seat of your pants. But like, I don't know. For me, I work backwards. So I pick the people that I want to play a game with, and I work backwards from there. So you sometimes before I've even decided on the system, I'll just be like, hey, you know what, Tanya, you and I haven't sat at a table together for a little while. Why don't we do this D&D one shot themed around Disney villains or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I wonder if there are shows, there are people going through this more like Hollywood style process of casting for these kind of RPG shows now. Like invariably, I think that's starting to creep in.
It's important.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, just to use Matt Mercer as the obvious example, not to compare to him, obviously, but I mean, look at the people he was DMing for. I mean, Stephen Colbert, Vin Diesel. Like we're already seeing Hollywood kind of trickle into this sphere. It's the leaks that will lead to a flood at some point. I imagine we'll see a lot more of it as time goes on, especially as the Hollywood elite see the money in it.
And the other side of that is the fact that, you know, it is at its heart a performance 100%. When you're sitting there and you're making that podcast or you're putting together that TTRPG stream, there is a big difference between doing that live in front of people and sitting at a table at home with your friends on a Saturday morning playing D&D. It is an entirely different user experience, and ultimately it is entertainment. So you should be acting a little bit and improvising and playing to that role.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like that's one of those things that I kind of think of naturally and don't even think to say. It's there's so many people who jump into this, especially recently, that think they can just put a camera on their Saturday night show, like you said, and just go. And something that I've always said since I've been doing this, and especially to the players I bring on, the show, well, it's all improv. None of it's scripted. It is 70% a show, 30% a game for when we do Stitch of Fate, which simply means if I make a call or something, if a rule is being bent in purpose of the story or in purpose of your character, the plot, there is no pushback. The players won't say anything. We're at a table. There might be a little bit of a debate with the DM, or there might be a little bit of a debate by the rule or by the call. But that's not like Deanna said. It's entertainment first. It's a game second. If you're looking to stream and cultivate an audience.
Well, yeah, this is amazing content that I hope everyone else has found as amazing as I have. We'll have to end our chat, but thank you again so much for being here and for providing the wonderful background content while I'm writing music and so forth. I have you guys out all the time, like I said, and looking forward to seeing what's next up for you all.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. It was really good to meet you, Deanna, finally. Having only heard of you through whispers.
It's one of those things, 1 degree of separation. Chris, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, we will make our closing announcements. Our next event is going to be May 20, and it is an all BMC or Blackmagic Collective chapter face-off, where top film cities are represented on a panel, and we try to decide where is the best place to film. And it's not just LA anymore. Now, of course, there's people filming in Atlanta, people really filming all over the country, particularly in light of the events of 2020. Don't forget to join the collective at blackmagiccollective.com. The membership is free, and it puts you in the know for all the initiatives and events. Remember to submit your 5-minute or less short film to the Blackmagic Collective Film Festival. It is free, just like basically everything that we do. And of course, we have our social media presence on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, so you can also follow Blackmagic Collective there to find out more about what we're up to. And just to thank our sponsor again, Blackmagic Design, and announce our winner of the Seat of Da Vinci Resolve. And the winner is Cher Davis. And we will reach out to you and let you know the details. And with that, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you again soon.